The emergency alarm pierced the pre-dawn darkness at 3:47 a.m., but it was already too late. Jason Moore's screams had stopped 2 minutes ago, replaced by the wet, grinding sound of industrial gears processing something they were never designed to handle. His outstretched hand, still clutching a worn cleaning rag, was the only part of him visible from the maintenance walkway. The rest had been pulled into the mechanical heart of Space Mountain. "Shut it down! Shut it down!" Mark Chen, the overnight maintenance supervisor, hammered the emergency stop button over and over. But the system wouldn't respond. The gears kept turning, kept pulling, kept grinding. The automated test cycle had become an execution machine, and somewhere in the computer's code, a malfunction had decided that completion was more important than the obstruction in its path. Blood seeped through gaps in the machinery, mixing with hydraulic fluid to create a pink foam that dripped onto the concrete below. The metallic smell of death mixed with the scent of industrial lubricant and the lingering traces of Jason's signature cleaning solution, pine-scented, because he said it reminded guests of Christmas morning. In the control room, horrified technicians watched system monitors show impossible data, pressure sensors detecting resistance, but override protocols keeping the machinery running. Error messages cascaded across screens. Foreign object detected. Attempting to clear. Cycle must complete. March 18, 2024. Disneyland. The happiest place on Earth had just become a nightmare. Jason Moore, 34 years old, devoted husband, father of 2, the invisible guardian who kept the magic spotless, was gone, consumed by the very attraction he'd spent 5 years meticulously maintaining. You're watching When Dreams Become Nightmares, and this fictional tale explores what happens when dedication becomes obsession, when going the extra mile leads you into the jaws of mechanical death. If this story grips you, subscribe, like, and share, because behind every magical experience are people who risk everything to maintain the illusion. Jason Moore wasn't supposed to be a janitor. With a degree in mechanical engineering and job offers from aerospace companies, he could have designed rocket engines or developed cutting-edge technology. Instead, he chose to clean toilets and mop floors at Disneyland. When friends asked why, he'd smile and say, "I'm not just a janitor, I'm a guardian of magic." To Jason, every piece of trash picked up, every surface polished, every hidden corner cleaned was an act of preserving wonder. He understood what most people didn't. The magic of Disneyland existed in the details, in the impossibility of finding a single piece of gum on the ground or dust on a railing. He wasn't cleaning a theme park, he was maintaining a dream. Jason treated that job like he was performing surgery, recalled Maria Rodriguez, who trained him in 2019. "First day, I showed him how to quick mop a bathroom. He asked 12 questions about the cleaning solution's chemical composition and spent his break researching optimal mopping patterns. I knew he was different." Born in Riverside to a family of engineers, Jason inherited both mechanical aptitude and obsessive attention to detail. As a child, he'd disassemble household appliances just to clean each component before reassembling them. His mother found him once, at age 8, having removed every key from their piano to polish beneath them. The piano never quite sounded the same, but it had never been cleaner. His fascination with Disneyland began during a 6th grade field trip. While classmates rode attractions, Jason noticed something else. The park's immaculate condition despite thousands of daily visitors. He watched janitors work with choreographed efficiency, sweeping debris into specialized dustpans, wiping surfaces with practiced precision. That night, he announced he wanted to work at Disneyland. His parents assumed he meant as an engineer. Jason did become an engineer, graduating from Cal Poly with honors. Boeing offered him a six-figure starting salary. Lockheed Martin wanted him for their spacecraft division. But Jason had already submitted his application to Disneyland for their custodial department. Everyone thought I was crazy. Jason told his wife, Sarah, when they met in 2020. But those companies build machines. Disney builds dreams, and dreams require different maintenance. His approach to custodial work bordered on artistic. Jason developed his own cleaning techniques, mixing solutions to achieve perfect streak-free surfaces, designing tool modifications for hard-to-reach areas. He mapped every attraction's hidden spaces, documenting areas previous janitors had missed. His supervisors were amazed to find him cleaning spots that hadn't been touched in decades. But Jason's perfectionism came with risks. He regularly ventured into restricted areas, claiming that dust didn't respect boundaries. Maintenance teams would find him behind attraction facades, cleaning mechanical components that guests would never see. When confronted, he'd argue that unseen dirt still affected the overall experience, that guests could sense neglect even if they couldn't see it. He had this theory, remembered Tom Walsh, a fellow night janitor. He said dirt was like entropiate, accumulated in hidden spaces, and gradually degraded the entire system. He thought his job was holding back chaos, keeping the magic from decaying. Looking back, maybe he was holding too tight. Jason's personnel file contained numerous commendations alongside warnings. Guests wrote letters praising the park's cleanliness. Managers noted his exceptional dedication. But safety supervisors documented his repeated violations. Entering mechanical rooms without authorization, cleaning during equipment operation, ignoring restricted area signs. His obsession intensified after his children were born. Emma in 2021, Michael in 2023. Jason wanted them to experience the same wonder he'd felt, wanted the park perfect for their visits. He'd text Sarah photos of areas he'd restored to pristine condition, writing things like, "Emma will love how this brass rail shines," or "Michael's stroller won't pick up any dirt from these walkways." The overnight shift suited Jason perfectly. From 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., he ruled an empty kingdom. While 50 other janitors handled basic cleaning, Jason pursued perfection. He knew every attraction's maintenance schedule, timing his deep cleans between automated test cycles. He developed relationships with overnight mechanics, who'd sometimes allow him supervised access to restricted areas. But Space Mountain remained his white whale. The attraction's complex machinery, enclosed in darkness and secured behind multiple access doors, harbored what Jason called 40 years of accumulated entropy. He'd petitioned repeatedly for permission to deep clean the mechanical areas. Each request was denied. The machinery was too dangerous, the spaces too confined, the risk too great. He talked about Space Mountain constantly, Sarah later testified. He'd diagrammed the track layout at dinner, explaining where he thought debris accumulated. He'd calculated that even small amounts of dust could affect the ride vehicle's weight distribution. I thought it was just engineer talk. I didn't realize it had become an obsession. On March 17, 2024, Jason worked his regular shift, focusing on Tomorrowland. Security cameras showed him passing Space Mountain repeatedly, pausing at employee entrances, checking doors. At 2:15 a.m., he sent Sarah his nightly text, "Making tomorrow magical for our babies. Love you." At 2:47 a.m., Jason discovered what he'd been waiting for, a maintenance door left unsecured during a shift change. The mechanical room beyond beckoned, with its promise of hidden dirt, accumulated grime, entropy to be conquered. He could hear the attraction's automated test cycle, running empty cars, racing through darkness, testing track integrity for the next day's guests. Jason should have reported the open door, should have continued his assigned route, should have remembered that some spaces weren't meant to be cleaned by human hands. Instead, he gathered his supplies, checked that no one was watching, and stepped through the portal into Space Mountain's mechanical heart. The door clicked shut behind him, the automated lock engaged, and Jason Moore began the final 43 minutes of his life, pursuing perfection in a place that would soon perfect the art of killing him. Space Mountain wasn't just a roller coaster, it was a mechanical organism. A 118-foot-tall ecosystem of gears, chains, motors, and sensors that had been running almost continuously since 1977. Deep within its superstructure lay the mechanical room Jason entered, a cramped maze of moving parts where the attraction's various systems converged like organs in a metal body. The room Jason discovered was designation MM7, Main Mechanism 7, responsible for the chain lift that pulled rocket sleds up the initial climb. Massive gear wheels, each 8 feet in diameter, transferred power from industrial motors to the chain system. The gears meshed with precision measured in thousandths of inches, their teeth designed to grip and release in perfect synchronization. When operational, they generated forces that could lift 30 tons. That room was never meant for human access during operation, explained David Kim, a former Disney engineer who helped design Space Mountain's safety systems. The clearances were minimal 18 inches between moving parts in some places. The noise alone could cause permanent hearing damage, and the gears, they were designed to chew through anything that might jam the system. Jason's first sensation upon entering was the sound of rhythmic thundering that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The test cycle was running, sending empty ride vehicles through the track system every 90 seconds. Each time a vehicle engaged the chain lift, the gears would accelerate, their massive teeth meshing with violent precision. But Jason saw something else, decades of accumulated grime. Grease mixed with dust had formed stalactites on the ceiling. Metal shavings from normal wear had collected in corners. The very entropy he'd sworn to fight had built a fortress here, in the one place he'd never been able to reach. Security footage from the adjoining corridor showed Jason's flashlight beam playing across the machinery for several minutes as he assessed the situation. He should have left immediately. The sound alone indicated active machinery. But the footage showed him setting down his supply bucket, pulling on heavy-duty gloves, and beginning to work. Jason had this ability to find patterns in chaos, recalled Jennifer Martinez, who'd worked maintenance alongside him. He could look at complex machinery and immediately understand its rhythm, its safe zones, but Space Mountain's mechanical systems were different. They were designed in the 70s, before modern safety standards. They were, essentially, industrial equipment barely modified for theme park use. The test cycle ran on a precise schedule. Every 6 minutes, the system would pause for thermal cooling. During these windows, the gears would slow to a crawl, creating what seemed like safe moments for cleaning. Jason timed these pauses, using them to reach deeper into the mechanism with his extended brush, scraping away years of built-up grime. What Jason didn't know was that the test cycle had been modified that night. A software update, pushed remotely by Disney's overnight IT team, had altered the cooling intervals to test a new efficiency algorithm. The 6-minute pattern he'd observed was about to change. At 3:22 a.m., Jason made a fatal miscalculation. According to his timing, he had 3 more minutes of slow gear movement. He extended his body, between two massive gear wheels, reaching for a particularly thick accumulation of grease on a drive shaft. His dedication to perfection placed him in a space where no human was ever meant to be. The software update triggered early. Instead of 3 more minutes of slow movement, the gears suddenly accelerated to full speed. The massive teeth caught Jason's coveralls first, pulling with inexorable force. His scream, captured on audio sensors, lasted 1.7 seconds before being cut off as he was pulled deeper into the mechanism. The emergency stop button was 8 feet away, might as well have been 8 miles. Industrial gears don't care what they're processing, explained Dr. Rachel Torres, a mechanical safety expert who reviewed the incident. They're designed to maintain consistent speed regardless of resistance. The forces involved are astronomical tons of thousands of pounds of pressure at the contact points. A human body might as well be tissue paper. But the horror was just beginning. The software update had introduced a critical flaw. It overrode local emergency stops in favor of cycle completion. As Jason's body was pulled into the machinery, sensors detected the obstruction and attempted to trigger safety protocols. The new code interpreted these signals as minor resistance, increasing power to maintain speed. In the control room, automated systems began registering anomalies. Pressure spikes, unusual vibrations, temperature increases in the gear housing. But the overnight skeleton crew was monitoring 14 attractions simultaneously. The alerts from Space Mountain were lost in the noise of routine operations. Jason's final moments were recorded by multiple systems never intended to document human death. Vibration sensors showed his struggles, decreasing in intensity as the gears did their work. Temperature monitors recorded the heat generated by friction between metal and organic matter. Audio pickups captured sounds that would later require therapy for those who heard them during the investigation. At 3:31 a.m., 9 minutes after initial contact, Jason's movement signatures ceased, but the gears continued turning. The test cycle had another 12 minutes to complete, and the updated software was determined to finish on schedule. Mark Chen had worked Disneyland maintenance for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for what he discovered at 3:43 a.m. on March 18. Responding to a cascade of error messages from Space Mountain's mechanical systems, he'd expected to find a broken chain link or seized bearing. Instead, he found hell. The first thing that hit him was the smell metallic and organic, mixed with the acrid scent of overheated machinery. The MM7 access door stood open, Jason's supply bucket visible just inside. Mark called out, knowing Jason's tendency to clean in unauthorized areas. The only response was the grinding rhythm of gears that sounded somehow different laboured, wet. "I knew something was catastrophically wrong," Mark later testified. "The gears were making this chunking sound, like they were processing something too soft for their design. And there was a mist in the air hydraulic fluid mixed with something else." Mark's flashlight beam swept across the machinery and found the horror. What remained visible of Jason was barely recognizable as human. The massive gears had pulled him in at the waist, folding and compressing his body into the mechanism. His upper torso was twisted at an impossible angle, pulled partially around a drive shaft. One arm had been severed completely, drawn deeper into the machinery. His face, mercifully, was turned away. But worst of all, there was movement. Not life Jason was far beyond saving, but the continued mechanical processing of his remains. The gears, following their programmed cycle, were still turning, still pulling, still grinding. Mark lunged for the emergency stop, slamming his fist against the red button. Nothing happened. He hit it again, then noticed the LED display, cycle in progress, override disabled. The software update had created a killing machine that couldn't be stopped. I've never felt so helpless, Mark said. I could see Jason, what was left of him, being slowly destroyed, and the machine wouldn't stop. It was like watching someone being digested by a mechanical monster. Desperate, Mark radios for help while trying manual shutdown procedures. He attempted to access the main breaker, but it was locked behind a cage, requiring a key he didn't have. He tried jamming a crowbar into the gears, only to watch the hardened steel tool get crushed like aluminum foil. Other maintenance workers arrived within minutes, followed by security and paramedics, but they could only watch in horror as the cycle continued. Someone suggested cutting power to the entire attraction, but that would require accessing transformers in another building 20-minute round trip. At 3:52 a.m., after what felt like eternity, the test cycle finally completed. The gears ground to a halt, dripping with a mixture of fluids that no one wanted to identify. In the sudden silence, they could hear the cooling tick of overworked metal and the drip of various liquids onto concrete. The paramedics approached, though everyone knew their services weren't needed. What they found defied easy description. The human body contains approximately 206 bones. The gears had broken most of them, creating a compressed mass barely recognizable as having once been a person. The machinery had to be partially disassembled just to extract Jason's remains. In my 20 years as a paramedic, I've seen industrial accidents, said Rebecca Martinez, first responder. But this was different. The machinery had been so thorough, so relentless. It was like Jason had been processed by design, not accident. The investigation began immediately. Disney's emergency response team sealed the area, beginning the delicate task of evidence preservation while managing the catastrophic publicity nightmare. By 4:30 a.m., executives were in crisis meetings, lawyers were being roused from bed, and a carefully crafted narrative was taking shape. The software update was identified within hours. A routine efficiency patch, designed to reduce cycle times by 0.3%, had inadvertently created a priority override that placed cycle completion above all safety protocols. The code review showed how a single misplaced parameter had turned safety systems into suggestions rather than commands. It was a perfect storm of failures, explained Dr. Lisa Park, the independent investigator brought in by OSHA. Unauthorized access, unsecured maintenance door, software bug, and human error. Any single failure could have been survived. Together, they created a death trap. But deeper investigation revealed more disturbing truths. The maintenance door's lock had been malfunctioning for weeks, reported but not repaired due to budget constraints. The software update had been rushed through without proper testing to meet quarterly efficiency targets. The mechanical room's safety sensors had been disabled during previous maintenance and never reactivated. Most damning were the previous incidents. In 2019, a maintenance worker had gotten their sleeve caught in the same gears, barely escaping with a dislocated shoulder. In 2021, a cleaning contractor reported being nearly pulled in while the system was supposedly shut down. Both incidents were documented but not acted upon, filed away as near misses rather than warnings. Jason's obsessive documentation became evidence of institutional negligence. His repeated requests to safely clean the mechanical areas showed awareness of the hazard. His supervisors' denials proved they knew the danger, yet no one had thought to simply fix the door lock or post a guard during overnight operations. The security footage revealed Jason's final 30 minutes in excruciating detail. His methodical cleaning, his careful timing of the gear movements, his fatal reach for that last spot of grime. The timestamp showed 3:22, 17 when the gears caught him, 3:22, 19 when he disappeared into the mechanism. 2 seconds from life to death. But one detail stood out to investigators. Jason's final act. As the gears pulled him in, security footage showed him throwing his phone clear of the machinery. It landed on the walkway, screen cracked but functional. His last text to Sarah, never sent, read, "Found the source of the entropy, making it perfect for." The message would never be completed. But in those final seconds, even as death approached with mechanical certainty, Jason Moore was thinking about his children, about the perfect park he wanted to give them. He died as he lived in service to an impossible standard of perfection that ultimately consumed him. The aftermath of Jason Moore's death sent shockwaves through Disney's carefully crafted empire of illusion. Within 24 hours, Space Mountain was indefinitely closed, cited as undergoing routine maintenance. But behind the cheerful facade of the park, a massive cover-up operation was underway. Disney's crisis management team, veterans of countless PR disasters, had never faced anything like this. A guest injury could be managed, a ride malfunction explained away, but a custodian ground to death in the gears of a beloved attraction, that was the stuff of nightmares that could destroy the company's image forever. The meeting that morning was surreal, recalled a former Disney executive who spoke on condition of anonymity. We had lawyers, publicists, engineers, and fixers all in one room. The footage of Jason's death was playing on loop as they strategized. I watched grown executives vomit. Then they went right back to planning the cover-up. The official story was crafted with surgical precision. Jason Moore had suffered a tragic accident during unauthorized maintenance. No mention of the software glitch, the broken lock, or the previous incidents. His family was approached within hours with a settlement offer that included strict non-disclosure agreements. The number was rumored to be in the 8 figures. Sarah Moore, suddenly a widow with 2 young children, faced an impossible choice. Fight Disney's legal army and risk losing everything, or take the money and remain silent about her husband's final moments. She chose her children's future, signing papers that legally erased the true nature of Jason's death. But secrets have a way of surfacing, especially in a place with thousands of employees. Maintenance workers, who'd seen the mechanical room before it was sanitized, whispered about the amount of blood, about finding pieces of Jason in machinery 50 feet from the initial contact point. Custodians reported being reassigned from Space Mountain after claiming to hear screams during overnight shifts. The attraction reopened after 3 months with a completely redesigned mechanical system. The gear room was sealed permanently, its functions relocated to newer, safer equipment. But employees noticed something strange. The overnight cleaning assignments for Space Mountain became increasingly difficult to fill. Workers reported equipment malfunctions, unexplained cold spots, and the overwhelming feeling of being watched. "I lasted 1 night," said Marcus Williams, a custodian hired 6 months after the incident. "I was mopping near the old MM7 access point when I heard it gears grinding. But that room was sealed, the machinery removed. Then I saw wet footprints leading from the sealed door. They weren't water, they were red." The reports multiplied. Overnight staff found cleaning supplies moved to areas Jason used to service. Security cameras captured mops and brooms moving on their own, following Jason's documented cleaning patterns. The employee turnover for Space Mountain's overnight crew reached 400% within a year. Dr. Patricia Chen, a paranormal investigator, brought in secretly by Disney management, documented 17 separate incidents suggesting supernatural activity centered around Space Mountain. Her report, buried in corporate archives, concluded, "The entity appears focused on completing unfinished tasks. It follows established cleaning patterns with obsessive precision. Staff report feeling compelled to clean areas they would normally ignore." Disney's response was typically corporate: deny, deflect, and if necessary, pay for silence. But Jason's legacy proved harder to contain than his physical remains. A Reddit post by a former employee, anonymous but detailed, went viral. It described the ghost janitor of Space Mountain, who could be heard scrubbing in sealed mechanical rooms, whose presence was marked by the smell of pine cleaning solution mixed with machine oil. The post was deleted within hours, but screenshots spread across social media. Disney's lawyers issued cease and desist orders, claiming defamation, but the story had taken on a life of its own. Urban explorers attempted to access the sealed mechanical areas. Ghost hunters brought EMF readers to Space Mountain, claiming to detect massive energy spikes near the former gear room. Then came the documentary. An independent filmmaker, working with former Disney employees, pieced together the real story through leaked documents, security footage, and testimonies from those willing to break their NDAs. The Gears That Ground, the Jason Moore story, premiered at underground film festivals before Disney's legal team could stop it. The film's most chilling sequence used actual audio from the mechanical room's sensors, overlaid with animation recreating Jason's final moments. Audiences reported being unable to finish watching, but it accomplished what Jason's death alone couldn't. It forced a conversation about worker safety in theme parks. OSHA launched a comprehensive investigation into Disney's maintenance practices. They found a pattern of deferred repairs, safety shortcuts, and prioritization of guest experience over employee welfare. The resulting fines exceeded $50 million. New federal regulations, informally known as Jason's Law, required redundant safety systems for all theme park mechanical areas. But perhaps the strangest development came from Jason's children. Emma, now 5, and Michael, 3, began displaying unusual behavior during park visits. They would lead their mother to areas Jason had cleaned, pointing at seemingly random spots and saying, "Daddy's here." Once, security footage showed Emma waving at an empty space near Space Mountain, saying, "Hi, Daddy, it's really clean." Sarah Moore, bound by legal agreements, couldn't speak publicly about her husband's death, but she could honor his memory in other ways. Using part of the settlement, she established the Jason Moore Foundation for Workplace Safety, focusing on protecting invisible workers whose dedication puts them at risk. During one foundation event, Sarah finally broke her silence, if only obliquely. "My husband believed in perfection. He saw beauty in the unseen, magic in the mundane. He died doing what he loved, in a place he loved, for people he'd never meet. But love shouldn't demand sacrifice. Dedication shouldn't require death. And no job, no matter how magical, is worth a life." Today, Space Mountain continues to thrill millions of guests annually. The ride is safer than ever, its mechanical systems protected by multiple redundancies, but overnight workers still report strange incidents. Cleaning supplies found in impossible places, the scent of pine cleaner in sealed rooms, and sometimes, in the pre-dawn darkness, the sound of someone scrubbing, methodical, thorough, eternal. Disney's official position remains unchanged. Jason Moore died in an unfortunate accident, and any reports of supernatural activity are unfounded. But they've also quietly implemented a policy: no custodian works alone in Space Mountain after midnight. The official reason is safety, The unofficial reason is something else entirely. Because in a place built on magic, where dreams come true and wishes are granted, perhaps it's not so strange that a man who lived for perfection might continue his work after death. Jason Moore wanted to be a guardian of magic, to keep the dream immaculate for his children and millions of others. Some say he still is. 5 years have passed since Jason Moore's death. Space Mountain has been refurbished twice, each time with more advanced safety systems. The MM7 mechanical room no longer exists. That entire section was demolished and rebuilt. But in the walls of the new structure, workers found something unsettling. Fresh scratches spelling out cleaning instructions, as if someone trapped inside had tried to communicate their methods to future generations. Emma Moore, now 8, still visits Disneyland monthly with her mother. She's developed an uncanny ability to spot areas that need cleaning, often pointing out spots that staff have missed. "Daddy showed me," she says simply. Sarah has stopped trying to correct her. The overnight custodial staff at Space Mountain has developed its own rituals. They leave a bucket of pine-scented cleaner by the sealed MM7 access point at the start of each shift. By morning, it's often empty. They've learned to accept the inexplicable, tools that clean themselves, messes that disappear without intervention, and the constant feeling of being supervised by someone who demands perfection. New employees are told the story, not as a ghost tale, but as a warning. Dedication is admirable, but obsession kills. The thin line between commitment and compulsion is marked in blood and gear oil. And somewhere in the mechanical heart of the happiest place on earth, that line is still being scrubbed clean by hands that will never rest. Disney has never officially acknowledged the supernatural events at Space Mountain, but internal documents, leaked by conscience-stricken employees, reveal a different story. Incident reports detail hundreds of unexplained events. Psychological evaluations of overnight staff show consistent patterns of shared experiences that can't be explained by suggestion or hysteria. Most telling is the budget line item, hidden deep in operational expenses. Specialized maintenance, Space Mountain overnight. The amount allocated is 3 times the standard cleaning budget, because whether they admit it or not, Disney knows that some employees never really clock out. Jason Moore wanted to be a guardian of magic, to preserve the wonder for future generations. In death, he's become something else, a reminder that every magical experience is built on someone's sacrifice, that behind every moment of joy is someone working in the shadows, and that sometimes the price of perfection is higher than anyone should pay. Guests riding Space Mountain today experience thrills and excitement, unaware of the tragedy that unfolded in its depths. But overnight, when the park is empty and the only sounds are mechanical hums and distant cleaning equipment, Jason Moore continues his work. Not as a man, but as something elsey, fragment of dedication so intense it survived even death, a standard of perfection that grinds on through eternity like the gears that claimed him. The next time you visit a theme park, take a moment to notice the cleanliness, the attention to detail, the invisible labor that makes magic possible. And remember Jason Moore, who gave everything to maintain the illusion, and who learned too late that some systems, once entered, never let you go. In the end, Disneyland got what it always wanted, an employee so dedicated he'll never leave. And Jason got what he wanted too, the ability to keep the park perfect for his children forever. The cost was just his life. In the grand machinery of the Magic Kingdom, perhaps that's simply another operating expense, written off and forgotten by everyone except those who still hear him cleaning in the dark.